Slow Horses is back this week with episode 3 of season 4, and following the ending of the previous episode where River was taken by the stranger after almost being killed, and David Cartwright being in hiding with Standish, this episode developed from the story in a way that brought us closer to trying to understand what was going on with the organization in France, and how it connects with everything that's going on with David. With an ending that contained action and suspense, let's take a look at this episode and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is Slow Horses Season 4 Episode 3 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The Ending Explained. So this episode had 3 different stories running through the core of it. We had Claude going against Diana and assigning Geety to look into past files to see if there were any other cold bodies that MI5 had created that had criminals associated with them. We had River in France trying to understand what the purpose of him being taken was. And we also had the French assassin in London looking to take out the other old man that he mentioned in the previous episode, which we saw was Sam Chapman. Let's first start by looking at Claude. Claude is somebody who likes to do things by the book, and it's becoming obvious that the undermining that's taking place by Diana and the fact that he feels inferior to her is starting to get into his head a bit. He was made to sign a document that he didn't read, which essentially connected him to the destruction of the Robert Winters identity and the fact that it was an MI5 agent's cold identity that was utilized when it came to the attacks. So now he wants to take things into his own hands and find out if there are any more cover-ups that are taking place, and also if there's anything that he feels he should know about. Personally, I don't think it's going to end well for Claude. We've seen the weight that Diana has and the influence that she has, and it's drastically different to his. The way that Molly spoke to Claude and referred to him as a weasel showed the lack of respect that she had for him, and this is something that's most likely present throughout the agency. So when Diana cottons onto the fact that he's got Geety looking into the past, she could well look to throw him under the bus in some way. In the preview for the next episode, it does say that she tries to hide a secret, so I imagine Geety's going to get onto something. The stories seem to all be interconnected, so I wonder if Geety is going to find something about Sam Chapman being in France during the 90s. Now let's take a look at David Cartwright and the reason River is in France. David is obviously extremely ill now, and he's finding it difficult to understand what's happened and what hasn't. However, there were a couple of lines that David said which showed that he's actually the only person on the side of MI5 that probably knows what's going on, but he's not able to articulate it well. David said, "The bomb, all those people, those poor people, it's my fault, it's all my fault." Plus, he also mentioned that something terrible was on the horizon, as he said, "I have to tell First Desk what's coming," meaning that there's most likely another type of attack on the way. During the episode, we found out that there was never actually any proof of David going to Lavande, but his bagman Sam Chapman did go there in the 90s. This is probably the reason as to why the French assassin was after Sam, because of what happened when he was there, and also why David was initially a target. In the previous episode, the French assassin said he might not know why he has to die. The use of the phrase "has to die" is something that I thought was particularly interesting, because it showed that there was no avoiding the death that was coming. Obviously, Sam did manage to avoid it though, due to Lamb running the assassin over with a cab. Lamb is just kind of floating around and understanding the odd piece of information as time develops, but he's starting to piece bits of information together. So Lamb is probably going to lean into questioning Sam on his time in France, and that will most likely uncover some revelations. It seems to all date back to the 90s, even the identity of Robert Winters, so whatever happened when Sam was there, it's deeply connected to what's occurring in the present day. With regards to River being in France, we found out that he was taken by the man at the end of episode 2 because the woman that wanted to meet with him was Adam Lockhead's mother, who we also found out was actually called Bertrand. They thought that River was initially her son, hence why they followed him, so they were shocked when they realized that it wasn't. During their time together, we found out a little bit more about the organization's headquarters and that the leader of it was called Frank Harkness. This is the guy that we've constantly heard on the phone. It turned out that Frank would have these women living there, make them have his children, and then once he did, he'd make the women leave. This is exactly what happened with Bertrand's mother, but when she did return to see him, it was almost like she didn't exist. This is probably due to the indoctrination that occurred within the Arbre, and the mindset that he was shaping these individuals to have. So it seems like whatever organization Frank was and is running, he wants it to be in-house. We also saw that Robert Winters' real name was Yves, and that he had a troubled childhood. He was also within the house that the organization operated from, and one would have to assume that Frank was the person that gave the green light on the Westacres attack. There's still no true understanding of why the attack happened, but with David saying that it was all his fault at the beginning of the episode and that he did it for River, I think River is deeply connected to what's going on. With River looking very similar to Bertrand and him being born in 1990, the same year that Sam Chapman was in France, could there be a deep-rooted connection between the pair and River be the cause of why David and Sam are being hunted? David raised River, remember, not his parents, so could he have been taken from there when he was younger? It's just one theory for now, but I'm sure we'll find out more in the next episode. The next episode is titled Returns, and it mentioned that River is going to be looking for answers in his grandfather's house, so maybe that's where we'll find out the truth. My review of the episode. I feel like this episode was definitely slower than the previous two. There weren't actually that many revelations that were within it, and it was more so focused around all of the information that we'd received so far and developing the story forward. I would say, like the other episodes though, the pacing was just perfect. It feels like the story is constantly moving forward and there's always something important that's happening, so it never feels like you're getting left behind or like what we're watching isn't valuable. Whenever the scenes cut to a different one, you're not yearning to be back in the previous scene because it's still just as exciting. I thought the final 10 minutes of the episode were probably the strongest, having River escape the gang in France because they believed that he was Bertrand and us not knowing how he was going to escape, and also having Sam trying to avoid the French assassin. It made tense viewing with stories occurring on both sides of the channel. Lamb just rocking up and taking out the assassin was a moment that I did just laugh about. It's just so Lamb. The fact that nobody else could stop him, and then after catching a glimpse, he thought on his feet and did that, it was funny, but also so cool at the same time. Somebody that I haven't complimented much in this season is Jonathan Pryce. His performance as David Cartwright this season is one which is simply incredible. He's forgetting things and slowly losing his grasp on reality due to the dementia that he has. And you can really feel that sense of unfamiliarity when he snaps into those periods of not knowing what's going on. It's frightening to see, and you can't help but feel for him when that happens. Plus, the individuals that he's speaking with when he's like that also perform well when it comes to responding in a way where not only can you sense the frustration, but also the upset that they have due to how he is. The story this season is slowly giving us clues and revelations throughout the episodes, but they're definitely keeping a lot close to their chest for now. We've just reached the halfway point in the season, so I feel like from here, the ante is probably going to be upped, and the revelations will arrive thick and fast, because considering there's only 3 episodes left, there's a lot of story that still needs to be told. We got a glimpse of JK in this episode, and we saw his true colors. Finding out that he was once handcuffed for 72 hours and threatened with torture was something that I didn't expect to hear. So I'm hoping we're going to see more of him, because he seems like a really interesting character. To be fair, he would have probably been good to have had on the streets whilst Sam was being followed, rather than Marcus. Slow Horses has often been described as a slow burn, and I think that's the perfect description of it. But the good thing about this show, as I mentioned, is the pacing, so they really do know when to turn the heat up. So, there you have it, Slow Horses Season 4 Episode 3, Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos on Slow Horses, then click on the card in the top corner, or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.